One of the biggest questions we're asked is, am I too old to buy a boat and sail around the world?
Are the young palm fringe bikini clad YouTube channels selling you a lie?
So, full disclosure, at the time of recording this video, I am 62 and Jamie is 49.
So that puts our average age at 55.
Yeah.
Well, we started sailing 13 years ago in 2006, and we didn't come from a sailing background.
Earlier this year, Jan Socrates, aged 77, became the oldest person to circumnavigate, unassisted, non-stop, on her own, all by herself, 77, the first person, and a woman.
Yeah, and in fact we've met lots of cruisers who fall into the older age bracket, from 70s to 80s and
even their 90s.
Even 90s. Yeah. Now, back when we started in 2006, I remember quite early on meeting Sadun Boro, and he was a bit of a Turkish national hero. He was the first Turk to sail around the world. When I met him, he was just preparing for his second circumnavigation at the age of 70 odd.
No, he was older, I think.
Was he older than that?
Yeah.
And I remember talking to him, asking him for any advice, then he said, do it now before it all changes.
Yes, and he had a real twinkle in his eye, that man. We've met people in their 90s. Very recently, we met someone in the Anambas who was 96 on his boat.
Unbelievable.
With his girlfriend.
Unbelievable.
Yeah.
He actually sat us down and said, guess how old I am? Yeah. And I would have put him at sort of maybe just about reaching 80.
Yeah.
So yeah, there we go.
And then the previous trip to Anambas, we met Peter, who had his 80th birthday when we were there, and they are still sailing, he and Helane.
Yep.
So
good on you guys.
One of the main reasons for putting together this video is to dispel the hype. What's out there on YouTube sailing channels bears no resemblance to what you actually find when you're cruising. The world is not populated by young, beautiful and rich people having a great time on their yachts. Couldn't be further from the truth. So I'm now going to hand you over to Professor Nerd.
Thank you very much. Okay, so we ran two surveys, two polls on two different Facebook sailing groups. We asked the same question with the same potential responses in each group. The two groups that we chose were quite specific. So the first group we chose was a Facebook group called YouTube Sailing Channels Creators Only. This is set up specifically for anyone that has a YouTube channel. And there's a group of about 200 or so members, I think.
300 now.
300. And we polled these people specifically to find out about YouTube sailing channels, obviously, and we got 50 respondents, which is not a bad number, especially because this is a very targeted group, so 100% of the respondents are the type of people we want to talk to. The second Facebook sailing group we used was Sail Southeast Asia, and I chose this group in particular because most of the members are actually liveaboard cruisers. A lot of the bigger sailing groups do have a lot of non-sailors on them, so we knew that most people in this group were liveaboards. They represent a very diverse group of people as well, because there's people from all over the world in Southeast Asia, from Europe to Americans to Aussies and Kiwis. So very good representation there. Now, we also had some families who took part in the response, and that potentially could have skewed the results because we asked people to average the age of the people on board their boat. I'll come on to that in a moment. One final note that is worth bearing in mind, one guy got in touch and said you might want to include a footnote to say these results are going to be skewed for the amount of old men picking up young girls in Asia. It's a fair point, by the way, that I think for most cruisers, these results are not going to be groundbreaking. We did this poll specifically to show you the bias of YouTube sailing channels. So we can see here that the largest group of YouTube users is up to the age of 40. And I had a hunch that perhaps mid-30s was the largest group, so I broke this down to 35 to 40-year-olds, which is by far the biggest group as we can see. What are the reasons for this? Well, YouTube generally has a younger profile. Younger people are generally more tech savvy, although of course that is changing. And perhaps younger people have more transferable skills that they can use on their boat. So a lot of them are actually working from their boat remotely. Okay, you can see now that there's a big change from 41 to 50, a big drop in YouTube channels. And the largest group of cruisers is 51 to 60, making up 38% of all cruisers. Now, if we just group 61 and over, by the time we hit 61 and over, there are a few sailing channels, but there is a large minority of cruisers at 27%. Let's just split it even more simply. Let's take 0 to 40 and 41 and over. And you can see that 58% of YouTube channels are 40 years and younger. Meanwhile, 81% of what we deem as normal cruisers are over 41 years old. By the way, I mentioned families, and I asked families to include their children in their average age. So where you may have two parents aged between 35 and 45 with young kids, that would actually bring down the average age to about 20 or so. But you can see this still doesn't affect the average age of a cruiser. I think it'd be interesting to have a look at these results in 10 years' time to see if they change.
Yeah, and they bear out what we anecdotally already knew. Yeah. So in a nutshell, YouTube sailing channels are done by young people, but all the rest of us who are sailing who are older, we don't bother with making them, apart from you and me.
Yeah. Now, before we bought Esper, I had about a year's worth of full-time sailing experience. Liz, meanwhile, had only ever done her competent crew. The fact is that we weren't that particularly experienced when we bought the boat, and pretty much everything that we know now we learnt along the way. That includes both sailing and, of course, boat maintenance.
So you can learn as you go, and we recommend lots of things to do right now. If you're thinking about doing this, you're still at work or you're still thinking about it, join a sailing club, learn to sail. Just see if you like it. There are lots of ways to get on boats, go and crew for friends and other people. You can even join, there are groups you can join where you volunteer to crew on other boats. Take a flotilla holiday. You need no qualifications to join a flotilla holiday. You spend a week or 2 weeks on a yacht, and that will tell you if you really, really want to pursue your dream. One of the major concerns, if not the major concern for cruising, is money. And if you're older, this is a concern that you can put to one side, usually because you might have a pension, you may have a property you can rent out, or you may have savings. All of these things are great, and we talk about them in a bit more depth in how to become a livable cruiser. We'll put a link below.
Yes, and of course, being older, you've probably got greater skills that you can bring to your life afloat. You could have been an electrician, carpenter, maybe you're just good at DIY, sewing, cooking. There's so many things that you've accrued, so many skills you've accrued over all these years, and that really does give you an advantage when it comes to living aboard.
Certainly does, and there's things like if you may have been in management, so you've got some management skills, people skills, massively important when you're on a boat, and you may have budget skills.
Sorry, I just laughed. I was laughing because there's no way you manage me on this boat.
All those people skills that you learn when you're in an office or in some other kind of work.
Actually, the management thing is a good point. You know, when you think about the time that we spent out in the boatyard, and even just managing an annual budget, those skills are really useful. Of course, it's important to be reasonably healthy as a liveaboard, but you don't have to be an athlete. I think we're testament to that, but you do need stamina, especially for those longer passages, but that's something that you can build up over the time. And whilst you're living aboard, of course, you're doing so many things that will keep you fit and healthy, whether that's swimming, kayaking, snorkeling, cycling into town, or even just walking and exploring. It does keep you fit. Yeah,
and if you're worried about the long passages, get crew. That's what a lot of people do. If there's just two of them or even just one of them, they get crew, quite often friends and family. It's all doable. We know people who are doing this with disabilities. I don't know if any of you have seen Dustin Reynolds. We met Dustin in Thailand. He only has one arm and one leg, and he is sailing in some of the most dangerous seas in the world. He's an amazing guy.
Yeah, go and check out his blog, The Single-Handed Sailor. We'll put a link in there below.
And sailing is mentally challenging. Passage planning and navigating and all those things involve quite a lot of the old grey matter, so it's good for you.
Yeah, and of course there is the whole concept of IT on board as well, computer systems, whether it's navigation systems or just the systems that you use to blog, vlog, communicate. IT is always changing, so even that is a good way of exercising that grey matter and staying on top of things.
Problem solving is a big part of cruising.
And puzzles keep your brain active. So, are the bikini-clad, palm-fringed, youthful YouTube channel...
When you get to go... off.
There's a lot of skills that you can bring to the fore with your previous, I'm talking
Yeah, no, you are.